We honor Chicago sports media giant Mr. Terry Boers, who passed away over the weekend at the age of 75. In basketball, Derrick Rose honor retirement ceremony was fit for a Chicago sports king. As far as the actual game, the Chicago Bulls actually showed up and won. Yay! In hockey, the Blackhawks had another ugly third period, losing to the Florida Panthers by the score of 3-1. In
Yuck.
the NFL playoffs conference championship Sunday, it was a little bit of a mixed review. We'll dig into that. And for our series finale for Old School TV Monday, saluting the 1985 Chicago Bears, yes, we will review Super Bowl 20, which took place 40 years ago to the date today. That and a whole lot more. So Monday edition of Second City Sports starts now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one, a drag in the left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! Robert Jr., his fourth of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edman back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide. Up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Bennington, no chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard. Wow.
Getting what a pass. Buzelis with the fade on the drive.
They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb Bruce, middle of the field. Loveland catch. Breaks away the 30. Loveland 20. Loveland 10. Loveland end zone. Touchdown Bears.
To the Monday edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded and we're live in living color right here on Sports So Chicago, along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown. Here you know it's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter X in the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We're unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion, do not 2 hour extravaganza we call a sports talk radio show, you got to hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and/or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given LaKeena full powers to give you dumbos to build and beer boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must shout out to our live game. That's LIVE Live Entertainment Game. Checking us out live in living color at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels at 12:21 p.m. Central Standard Time. But let's not forget much love to the replay game. Checking us out on the replay, also at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Thank you very much for like, comment, sharing, and subscribing. Our numbers will keep going up as far as you replay game. Thank you so much for the love. Don't you ever forget our motto where we talk sports, music, or entertainment. We will provide.
And we invite you with some of the best here on Second City Sports. We know that half the country is under ice and or snow or cold. So if you took the day off today, or if you're off for school, taking the snow day, look, if you're joining us for the first time, we're happy to do it. Let's get those. We love those replays. Get them up. And so we're gonna cover all fields here on Second City Sports. Of course, a career game for Keaton Wagler as he leads the Illini over Purdue in a rare road win at Mackey Arena. We'll talk about that. Also, the Blackhawks, not a good weekend for the Blackhawks down there in Florida. We'll talk about that. Australian Open, there will be a new women's champion, much as his chagrin as his girl, Mads Keys, loses to fellow American Jessica Pegula. But it was a good match, though. Also, Scottie Scheffler gets his first of will probably be many wins of the season, the PGA Tour. Also, of course, the conference championship, Super Bowl 60 is set, so we'll talk about that after the break here. And of course, D Rose gets a ceremony fit for a legend, a Chicago legend. So, we'll get to that. And the Bulls also won, so that makes it even better. But first, we're going to honor another Chicago legend, this time a Chicago sports radio legend, Terry Boers. If you guys didn't hear the news over the weekend, they actually broke the score. Actually broke the news live on during Spiegel and Holmes that Mitch Rosen, of course, who's the just sort of like the head guy all over the score, has been for a long time. He broke the news that Boers passed away due to liver failure at his home in Florida. He was surrounded by his family. He was 75. He had been battling cancer since he retired. That's why he had to retire from the sport back in 2017. His career spanned many years, especially 25 years at the score. He actually began in newspapers and such. Of course, Boers and Bernstein. That was the number one way, not just sports talk show, but in some years, number one sports radio show in all of Chicago for many years. And seeing the tributes all over the place, people we know who worked there or who used to work there that still work there, either in front of or behind the scenes. And I know that his humor wasn't for everybody. Well, let's just be with that. But he and Dan Bernstein, they were a great Chicago sports radio duo, and that's why they were the number one. They had the top show in all of Chicago radio for many years. And we'll get to the stuff where that they'll be doing some special programming. We'll get to that in a minute here. But Sid, what was I know. Our buddy Tony Gill worked at the score for a little bit. I know that you've been to the studios a few times. So yeah, we'll share your thoughts on Mr. Boers's legendary status in his passing.
Like you said, a true legend. I never got the chance to meet him, but I remember listening to him growing up, like you did here in Chicago when the score first got on the air back in January of 1992. Of course, Terry Boers was in the newspaper business, like you said, for many years. Of course, he covered the Chicago Bulls for the Chicago Sun-Times up until the beginning of the dynasty of the 1990-91 season when the Bulls won their first of 6 championships. And remember, he had he hinted at a story that not too many people paid attention to at the time. It was the cocaine circus Chicago Bulls back during before Michael got drafted. Of course, he touched on it a little bit in that documentary, The Last Dance. But I remember Terry didn't go too much into it, but he hinted at certain things that he saw at his time covering the Bulls as they were ascending to this top contending team in basketball. We all know what turned out to be for that franchise of the 90s. But like you say, his humor was not for everybody, but he went at it with no holds barred. He was himself both on and off the air. Of course, his first show on the score was with the heavy field court with him and Dan McNair for the first 6-7 years. Of course, he teamed up with Bernstein in '98. I believe they did this show for I forget, it was 12 to 15 years. I forget how much, but it was in double-digit years, outlasting the monsters of the midday with Dan Jacobs and Mike North. And so with Terry Boers being also a pioneer and being one of the first newspaper writers to go from print to electronic media, he was a trailblazer in that as well. I know Tony Cohenheis, I believe in one of his tweets over the weekend, said the same thing. And shout out to our good friend. Hopefully we can get him on this program one day. But Jonathan Hood said it best on his podcast Under the Hood over the weekend that if Terry Boers was doing this in New York, he would have had a statue by now. He would have definitely had a famous street named after him by now. But as you mentioned, I had a chance to going to do some stuff in the Score Studios a few years ago with the whole D and Davis show. Thanks to Tony Gill and Mitch Rosen for that. You'll see a sign going into the Score Studios, and it's still up there to this day. If you watch them on Twitch or their YouTube channel, it's Terry Boers' Way, and his impact, what he did not only in print but on the air at the Score for all those years, for 25 years for him, it'll never be forgotten. It's in DNA of all the past hosts and current hosts right now. It's in the DNA for all of us hardcore Chicago sports fans, listeners, and supporters as well.
Listen to Second Stage Sports on Sports on Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you as we remember the legendary Terry Boers, who passed away over the weekend, and seeing some of the various folks, they posted their remembrance, working with him, our girl Julie Swiker, again, and of course she worked there at the Score for many years. She credited Terry for kind of just helping her out, through her career and her rise in the ranks over at the Score and some of the others. I saw that mention with Hoodie, and he, of course, he worked there. People forget he worked there for years before. He went up the dial over for at ESPN Chicago, where he's been the last, I think, like 10 or 12 years. So Boris impacted
20
a lot
years.
of 20 years, well, 20 years, my bad, and he impacted a lot of folks there, and I think he is definitely the kind of guy that definitely he made fate of he worked hard, but he didn't really he didn't take himself seriously. I think that's probably why folks gravitated towards him and Dan Bursey, because they weren't ready to go there. And you say that in New York, if they did in New York, they would have had a statue, but if that kind of stuff, I don't think a show like that could exist now because of the climate we're living in. Of course, folks would have been sponsorship would have been all over the place, and folks would have been kind of like shaken and such. So the kind of humor that he and Bernstein to an extent endure for many years, I think that would not have fly in today's, because we talked about it when Jobo from Eddie and Jobo passed away about a month ago. Sort of the same thing here. Like that their kind of stuff. The fact that the stuff that they pulled off, wouldn't fly in today's radio landscape.
Yeah. Also, too, let's give a shout out. I don't know if you were listening Saturday morning, LaKeena. Of course, before I was watching the Best of Soul Dre via YouTube, I was doing some stuff around the house again. I was actually cooking breakfast, to be honest with you. But yes, it cooks. That's a whole nother show. But I was listening to Steve Rosenblum in the Saturday Suckage. Of course, remember, it was him and Mark Grody up until a few years ago. It's just been Steve Rosenblum solo for the last few years. But I listened to the first 15, 20 minutes of it, and he gave a great for like a better word, eulogy of Terry Boers. And of course, Steve Rosenblum came in there along with the whole group of other talent. And once they switched to the 24-hour signal, which was not the best at that time in April of 1997. And of course, he broke down crying and saying how Terry was played an integral part in his career. He wanted to be a sports writer like him. He wanted to be a personality like him, at least some semblance of it. And of course, listening to Rahimi Harris this morning, as we talked about before we hit record, about the Mitch Rosen, now the vice president of the Score, and they were talking about his presence being felt at that station, his impact, what he did will last forever. So that's kind of some of the things I took away this weekend. Of course, I went to my Twitter timeline yesterday, and I did some on Saturday before watching the Derrick Rose retirement, and almost every tweet, LaKeena, except for the annoying advertisements. Thank you, Elon Musk, for that. But except for those advertisements, every other tweet was about Terry Boers, and it shows you the impact he had not only on this city but on the Chicago sports landscape as well.
And at the time when he came on the Score, and I think Mitch mentioned this, on with our buddies, our friends of the show, Larry Rahim and Marshall Harris, this morning, that when he joined the Score, they weren't on at nighttime. They stopped at near like early evening or late in the afternoon, going to early evening. So the signal at the time, they weren't well, they're still not 24 hours, but they didn't have a Score prime time during that point. So that kind of sort of like transitioned that part to that as well. Of course, once sports radio became popular here in Chicago, of course they extended it, and the signal, of course, they're going to be on. They're going to be going to FM in a couple of weeks. So it's definitely one of those things, how much it changed, and he played a big part in the growth of that. So he'll definitely be missed. And for those of you, yes, they are going to be doing a special tribute to Mr. Boers from noon to 7 tomorrow, and Max Spiegel will be hosting that. So they're going to have folks from the previous Score regimes. Dan McNeil, Dan Bernstein, I'm sure will be there as well. So they're gonna go all out in this tribute to him. So should be interesting to see what happens, who shows up. I'm sure our girl will find a way. Julie Swyka again, I'm sure she'll find a way to do it as well. Even if she got to do something like pre-recorded, but it should be a great tribute, and hosted by Matt Spiegel from noon to 7 tomorrow on the Score. I guess Sid's having trouble. Having some technical difficulties and such. So we'll take a really quick break, of course.
Yes, it should be very interesting. It's going to be a celebration of life, and I know the guys behind the scenes are going tomorrow.
All right, so we'll take a really quick break. Of course, we'll review Championship Sunday. One game, lived up to the hype. The other game, well, I wouldn't say it was boring, but some people will say that it was boring. But Super Bowl 60 is set, and some interesting stats coming up. And also, we got the coaching carousel, including a surprising hire in Pittsburgh, and could a couple of teams be close to getting their guys this week? We'll have that and a whole lot more coming next. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. We go to the Gridiron coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey Maggette, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on a Monday extravaganza edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's LaKeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG. It's SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow McGee McGee on the Twitter, X, again, IG.
We're going to review Championship Sunday, both the AFC and the NFC Conference Championship games from the National Football League, and get into the latest in the coaching carousel as well for this half hour. If you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up and screen for you.
Let's start with the main course of this, the NFC Championship game. It definitely lived up to expectations. Seattle goes to their fourth Super Bowl, beating their NFC West rival Los Angeles Rams 31-27. Sam Darnold had 3 touchdown passes, threw for 346 yards. It was a Jackson Smith and Jigma, the JSN show. He had 153 yards and a TD catch. Was honored with the LFG, Tom Brady's LFG Player of the Game honors for him. And it was also the defense, too. I mean, the defense made some key stops late in the game. And on the flip side for the Rams, Matt Stafford threw for 3 TDs, 374 yards, and losing effort. Blake Corum had 55 rushing yards, 165 yards for Puka Nacua, and a TD catch. As well as, same for Devontae Adams. He had 89 receiving yards and a TD catch as well. But said it was the play calling, you could probably say, that kind of doomed the Rams there. It was late in the fourth quarter. They had a shot to perhaps maybe either take the points or perhaps maybe even try to get the lead. The pass was Darnold. I don't know what kind of play that was. I think he was going for Nacua, and Devon Witherspoon, Illinois guy, was right there. But you could kind of say that maybe he should have taken the points. They had about 4.5 minutes left, so their defense actually had stopped the last couple of possessions of the Seahawks after giving up that touchdown early in the third quarter there. So what do you think about the game? And were there some things that the Rams could have done differently?
Yeah, the Rams, I thought, with the game, the momentum point of the game that turned around against it was that fumble, the punt fumble toward the end of that third quarter, when the Rams scored 14 points to get back into the game. Now, their offense struggled only scoring on the opening drive, getting 3 points, but they did recover to make it a game trailing 17-13 at the half. But the Rams offense did turn it around coming out of their locker room to start the second half. But that fumble and the punt return, I thought was a key turning point in the game, going against the Rams. They let Seattle back in the game and have them back in control. But I'm with you, LaKeena. That fourth down play with over, I think it was, like you said, over 4.5, under 5 minutes to go. The Rams, I thought, should have taken the points to make it a 31-30 game. Like you said, the Rams defense did stop Seattle on his last possession. But Sean McVay, just like Ben Johnson here in Chicago, he's aggressive, and he's going to go for it hook and crook. He did on the previous play, fourth down play. We know Matthew Stafford, he's 37 years old. He cannot run for his life, but he made the first down. But on that fourth down and goal play, I thought the Rams should have taken the field goal there to make it a 1-point game to give them to give themselves life. But it didn't work out the way. Seattle, I was very impressed by Kenneth Wagler there. We said on our pick segment last Friday that the absence of Zach Charbonnet will come back to perhaps bite him in the butt. It did not. I said Sam Darnold will have some demons to conquer. He had a great game. I don't think he turned the ball over even once yesterday. So, in the Seattle's defense, they weren't great in that third quarter, but they were great when they had to be. And shout out to Cooper Kupp, the former Los Angeles Ram wide receiver. I believe he was the Super Bowl MVP when they won it a few years ago. And so, of course, the Rams cut him in the offseason. Seattle picked him up, and he paid big dividends with a touchdown grab yesterday. He had another clutch catch on Seattle's final try to basically seal the game yesterday. So it was overall a good team win for the Seahawks. Congratulations to Mike McDaniel. Y'all won't be there, and to his entire coaching staff and the entire organization for getting the job done.
Yeah, Mike McDonald only his second
Mike
year.
McDonald should say.
Yeah. No, that's all right. But it's only his second year, of course, leading that defense and the Seahawks to the Super Bowl. Also, Sam Darnold become the first starting QB from that stacked 2018 draft class to reach it. Just like everyone predicted, right? Yeah, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, they were part of that class, and he is the first to go to the Super Bowl. So it's weird. It's weird how it's funny, if you will, if you want to say it, is like how that kind of works. That's why you always play the games and such. So anyway, I think the Rams are it's going to be one of those things where yes, they should have taken the points, but they gave up their secondary. They need to work on that secondary. That has been also that special teams. That muff punt. That's been unfortunately that's been the story all year. That's been one of the Achilles heels of that Rams team, most of the season, well, except the Bears, ironically, is that special teams, unfortunately, and that kind of killed whatever momentum because they had just stopped them at that point, and then of course that happens. Who knows what happened after that? So there were a lot of instances where the Rams probably could have turned around their fortunes and won this game, but. The Seahawks, give them credit. Darn. Well, we'll get to studs and duds in a second. I'm sure you're gonna mention that player from Seattle. We'll get to him in a minute here. But now they're 4-0 in conference championship games. So 4-0. I mean, each time. So that's kind of crazy if you think about it. But on the flip side for the Rams, Devontae Adams, of course, he had a TD catch, but unfortunately now he's and I did not notice our new buddy Michael Duarte, who's over at California Post. Sports, they just launched today, so you guys make sure you guys check that out too. In his articles, he was out there with Seattle yesterday covering this game, but he's now I'm talking about Adams now 0-5 in conference championship games. You saw the emotion. You never see him cry, but I felt bad for him because you're running out. He's getting older, and you're running out of chances. So it's just you feel for some for him. And I saw Sean McVay show emotion as well. So it's sort of the flip side of these playoffs games and such.
Yeah, despite the Rams losing a couple of bad games late in the season to knock them out of the number 1 seed, you still had to give them credit for making it to the conference championship game. No home games in the playoffs. They got their lick back, as the kids would say, beating Carolina in wild card weekend. They got lucky here in Chicago, whether folks want to admit it or not. They found a way to beat the Bears at Soldier Field in the cold last Sunday. Of course, yesterday they just came up a little bit short. I think most of their team is back next year, with the exception of Kobe Durant, their defensive back. I think he's a free agent. A couple others are free agents too, but for the most part, the core of their team will be back next year. Well, let's assume that Matthew Stafford will be back next year to give it at least one more go, because as we all know, he'll probably end up being named the MVP for this 2025 season. But they just came up short yesterday. And for them being at the number 1 spot all year long, even though they fell off toward the end with bad losses at Carolina and then again at Atlanta, and they showed their resolve. They just came up just a few points short.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens during the offseason. We'll be looking for a new quarterback. We'll see what happens there. I just Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid LaKeena with you here. Now let's go to the AFC title game. The Patriots held off the Broncos 10-7. This is their 12th Super Bowl appearance, and this is the first of the post Brady Belichick era here. Also, Mike Vrabel and his second year of as the head coach there. And Drake May, didn't have his best showing, only 86 yards, but he used his legs. That kind of sealed the win. And he had a rushing touchdown for the Patriots. That ended up being the only touchdown for them. He was sacked 5 times. Well, I'll get to the defensive part for the Broncos in a second. Now, Jarrett Stidham, 133 yards, a bad interception. He had a TD early in the game. You thought, okay, but then the weather, snow became a problem here. The run game was non-existent for Denver, unfortunately. Marvin Mims did have a couple of catches, but unfortunately, it was Sean Payton not going for the field goal and early on, and that came back to bite them, because had they been up, they would have been up 10-0, and who knows how the game would have been. But the Patriots, their defense, to their credit, they were able to. Christian Gonzalez had a key interception that sealed the win for them, the Patriots, and now they're going back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, congratulations to the Patriots and their entire organization and their staff for making it to the big game. Yesterday we got a LaKeena McGee special. Yay! A 10-7 conference championship final. And that I'm sure that made you happy a little bit in terms of the ugliness of that game. But you mentioned, as we talked about on the show last Friday, LaKeena, during our preview segment, I said, even though the game was in Denver, the New England better be careful not to let the Broncos get out to a hot start, or else they're in trouble. Of course, after the Broncos scored that opening touchdown, the game turned in their favor when Jarrett Stidham had that fumble. I forgot who was 93 for the Patriots. He picked it up and scored. I thought the play should have continued, but the ref said no. It was called intentional grounding, and the Patriots were spotted the ball at that spot where that fumble occurred. And of course, that Drake May ran it in for the touchdown a couple of plays later. But after that, you can see the tide turning. Of course, in the second half, the snow started to come down. Both teams struggled to find their footing. But like you said, it was more about the Patriots defense, as we talked about them throughout the course of the season, led by defensive back Christian Gonzalez. They're very physical, hungry defense. Give Mike Vrabel, the head coach, a whole lot of credit for that. And the running game, I said, for the Patriots had to step up. Ramondre Stevenson had 25 carries for 71 yards, but it was Drake May's legs that saved the day on that fourth down play to basically seal the game for the Patriots.
Yeah, unfortunately, they couldn't get the. I forgot who it was. That was, I think that was. I don't know if that was Surtain or Greenlaw. One of them was near him, and they tried to get him, because he would have been short had they had tackled him. But they just be able to, maneuver him around, and just enough to move it around to win the game for him. So, so just just unfortunate for that defense, because they had played. That Broncos defense was spectacular, like we said. 5 sacks. They did their job. Unfortunately, they just weren't able to. The offense just look. Bo Nix or not. I mean, look, they had their chance to perhaps maybe win the game. They just couldn't get it going. So you feel for you feel for the Broncos that they were, again, were they the best offensive team? No, but their defense kind of led the way, and unfortunately that kind of killed them in the end.
Yeah, congratulations also to Stephon Diggs, who led the NFL with the most playoff receptions without reaching the Super Bowl. Of course, he's going right now. I'm not going to mention all the off the field stuff with his wife, but that's a whole nother issue. But congratulations to him. He's going to get a lot of attention at the Super Bowl starting next week when they head over to San Francisco. But LaKeena, going with Bo Nix, I think Nate Burleson addressed it yesterday on the postgame show along with Bill Cowher for CBS. If Bo Nix would have played, I'm not going to sit here and say it would have been a guarantee Broncos win, but they definitely would have scored more than 7 points, and Bo Nix definitely would not have made some of the silly mistakes that Jerry Stidham did after the opening drive yesterday.
Yeah, I think he actually can run too, so I think he would have made some plays with his legs. I think that would have made a big difference. But with the weather being the equalizer, I don't know if that would have been. I think in the end, the reason why they didn't, they took the points was they should have trusted Will Lutz. I mean, he could have made that field goal before. I know he missed 2 right before when the wind started shifting and the weather started changing, but it's kind of interesting how all this kind of plays out, if you will, right, Sid? I mean, it's sort of weird that the Broncos that they were able to they just couldn't get it going here. All they need is a couple of solid offensive drives that would have gotten them the wins, because like I said, the defense did their job.
Yeah. Like you said, the defense did their job, and like we said, especially in today's NFL, you need to score. You need to score some points, and like you said, the injury of Bo Nix came back to bite him in the butt. You like Sean Payton for being aggressive, but it came back to backfire on him yesterday. And if they would have had Bo Nix, their odds of winning definitely would have increased. But you got to deal with what you had, and they just came up a little bit short.
Also, on the flip side, though, for Mike Vrabel, he won 3 Super Bowls, of course, with the Patriots. Now he'll try to be the first to ever win a Super Bowl as a player and as a coach for the same team that that he played and coached for. I know there have been other instances where but that was during as a coordinator, so he'll get a chance to make some history there. I mean, like I said, I'm happy for Diggs too. If you saw that, if you remember. When he played for the Vikings, he had that Minneapolis Miracle that happened. He was on the receiving end of that. Unfortunately, the Eagles got their butts. The Eagles kicked their butts, in the conference championship game. You saw a few years ago when the first time the Bills played the Chiefs, and you saw how he stood there for like almost for the entire time as the Chiefs were celebrating over at Arrowhead. This was in 2020. No, this was in 19. Now, of course, now he gets to go. Like you said, that's crazy that he had the most receiving yards in the playoffs, and now he'll be able to go to his first Super Bowl. So you're happy for him. You're happy for Vrabel, Coach Vrabel, because he's kind of like, you can tell how they were celebrating, how they were all embracing him. He's kind of a player's coach, if you will. He admits he admitted that when he was with the Titans, he was kind of a hard ass, and that kind of lost signals. Guys, kind of fall on deaf ears. Now he's kind of balancing it out. Yes, he's still a bit of a hard ass, but he is kind of like a player's coach. So that I think you can tell that's been a big difference. You can tell how everybody embraced him. You saw, him and Marcus Jones, celebrating after the clock turned 0. Christian Gonzalez, he congratulated him after that big interception that sealed the win for them. So there are a lot. I know some people say, oh well, the Seahawks are going to kick the Patriots' butts. Not so fast. I mean, this might actually end up being an irritating. We'll talk about that more next week. But this will probably be a much better Super Bowl than people are saying that it will be.
Yeah, like I said, once again, congratulations to the Patriots and coaching Menace, as we said here in Chicago, watching Ben Johnson's elevation coaching with the Bears for his first year. With Mike Vrabel, he's been there as a player. And I think one of the big traits to being a good head coach is when to pull back and when to lay down the hammer, but when to pull back as well. You got to have that balance. Not all coaches have that, but Mike Vrabel has been around the block and so he looks like he's found that balance. Like you said, the players have much respect for him and they respond to whatever he says. So the Patriots, they shouldn't apologize for the season that they had. I know they were 14-3 throughout the year. I said this in August, just like I said with the Bears, both the Bears and the Patriots, I did not have them in the playoffs this year, but I said both these teams will be improved by next year. And now both these franchises are ahead of the schedule. Just focusing on the Patriots is just a second. Mike Vrabel, like I said, coaching matters. I know that they did beat some teams that ended up being in the playoffs this year, but they shouldn't apologize for it. They took advantage of a weak schedule. They did beat Buffalo in Buffalo for the last time at Rich Stadium early this year on Sunday Night Football. You saw what they did in the playoffs against a Houston team which was offensively challenging. Of course, Denver, one of the best, if not the best, top defense numbers wise in the league. They hung in there toe for toe and got the job done as well.
And also kind of same thing with the Seahawks too. If you think about it, they had a similar record, last year, and both these teams were 60-1 odds to make the Super Bowl. So if you took one or both these teams, you had a nice little payday, if you will. And look, they had their hiccups early in the year. They lost to San Francisco. You thought, okay, this could be the same old story. They lost to the Bucks at home as well. If you remember that game earlier in the year, and that was a thrilling game. It's probably one of the games of the season. So yeah, but they were able to look. They took care of business and such. I mean, yeah, they had that. They beat the Steelers early on. They beat the Colts. That kind of started. Okay, this team might actually be really good. Thanks to their defense and such. They got their lick back against the Rams because of course they lost to them early on as well. Twice. So look, I mean they couldn't help who they played in their schedule, and look, they did what they're supposed to do, and now they're both these teams are going to the Super Bowl.
And the Patriots, I believe they become the first team ever since the season before losing 12 or more games to reach the Super Bowl. So what a great turnaround. Drake May, the second-year quarterback, has done wonders under Mike Vrabel. So he gets a whole lot of credit as well.
And of course, if you guys remember, he was actually about a decade ago, he was actually at that Super Bowl between the Panthers and the Broncos. He actually watched because Cam Newton was his favorite player growing up. And now that it is just the second year, he's now going to the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't think anybody had that early on the season. And also Sam Darnold, Sam Darnold too. Or like you said to me, that's why this is a case in point of the Super Bowl where that's why you play the games. These two were long shots to make to the Super Bowl. Now look at them now. They both had a couple of best records in the league. Now they're both going to Santa Clara for the Super Bowl. 60.
Yep, and this should be a great battle in the rematch of the 2014 Super Bowl that took place in Arizona. I wonder if Pete Carroll and Marshawn Lynch will be interviewed in the next week or so, because that angle is going to come up a lot, I believe. Fair or unfair, that angle, that last offensive play of the game for the Seahawks, it's going to get a whole lot more attention than I think that it should, but that's just me.
They actually had Richard Sherman was actually there yesterday at the game because he was one of the honorary captains. He actually had showed a picture of his. You saw that look he had after that Malcolm Butler interception, and if he had that look, I'm sure he and Cam Chancellor will be out there in the ear of Mike McDonald to kind of tell his guys, okay, look, please avenge us. We waited 11 years for this, almost 11 years for this. So can you avenge us, please, with a
Mhm.
Super Bowl? I know those guys weren't there. Not even Vrabel was there, but but yeah, it's pretty funny here. So, but like I said, it should be a really entertaining Super Bowl between these two teams. So, revenge, I guess, will be the goal. Would be the theme here.
All right, it's time for our studs and duds. I'll give my 3 studs. My first stud is Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots, 25 carries for 71 yards as the Patriots defeat the Broncos 10-7 in an AFC title game. My second stud will go to Kenneth Walker III for the Seattle Seahawks, 19 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown as the Seahawks beat the Rams 31-27 and winning the NFC Championship. And my third stud, it will go to a losing team, Matthew Stafford of the Rams, 22 of 35, 374 yards and 3 touchdowns.
I'll give my first stud to Mr. Sam Darnold. Like I said, I'm happy for him. He had we talked about it, said earlier on, and it like I said, just the fact that he's the first person out of that 2018 QB class, 3 TDs, 346 yards. He had 78.3 passer rating over his first 6 years in the NFL. That was the worst in the league at the time. Now, no other QB, in the history had the worst passer rating over his first 6 years, and now it's going to be starting the Super Bowl. Quite remarkable if you think about it. So I know Minnesota fans are probably scratching their heads. They're probably pulling out their. I know they got bigger issues to worry about. But, I know they got bigger issues to worry about. I know, but I'm just being facetious here, going collective with the sports angle here. But yeah, he's my first stud. Drake May, running. Speaking of QBs, running with his legs, the clutching. Clutching a first down, that part of that. I mean, it's only the second year, just insane. And also, Devon Witherspoon for making that big key defensive stop. If you can probably see the ball, probably when Purdue probably not caught that ball anyway, but he definitely, Witherspoon definitely played a part in getting that pass, and now they're that was a really key stop there in that fourth down.
Right. My 3 duds are as follows. Whoever's number 27 for the Seattle Seahawks, talking trash to
Tariq Woolen.
Sean McVay for the talking trash to Sean McVay. Actually got a 15-yard penalty, which led to a Rams touchdown. But I don't know if you saw after the game, LaKeena, he did shake McVay's hand and he apologized. And McVay was like, okay, cool, move on. So he gets my first dud. My second dud is the punt return fumble by the Rams, which gave the momentum and the ball back to the Seahawks. And my third dud will be the 2 missed field goals by Will Lutz of the Denver Broncos.
Well, yeah, you started my first one, Xavier Smith. That's his name. The guy that he did it twice. He actually recovered the first one, but the second one just kind of killed the Rams' momentum. I think that started that. My second dud, Sean Payton. Why did you take the field goal early on in that game? You would have been up 10-0. Who knows what would have happened after that? I know you like to be aggressive, but a theme here, but whatever. I digress. Yeah. My last dud. Yeah. I know. Also, my other dud will go to the other Sean, and this Sean Payton. Like, really, dude. Like, why did it just take the points? You had 4.5 minutes left. You should have taken the points. Look, your defense actually had made some stops. Even if they had just got to the field goal, you would have gotten the ball back. So yeah, you could have set up a little bit differently. Well, probably had some time left. So, but I digress. So,
What do we know? All right, and we'll wrap up our football discussion discussing the latest hire, this time coming from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Mike McCarthy, a longtime NFL head coach. He last coached the Dallas Cowboys a couple of seasons ago. He's coached in the league for 18 years. 12 of those years he has qualified for the playoffs. He's the new coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course, Art Rooney II, who was part of the ownership in Pittsburgh, said that he's going to quote-unquote leave the door open for Aaron Rodgers to come back. I'm sure that was discussed at full length before Mike McCarthy took the job. LaKeena, I'll ask you the question. It looks like Aaron Rodgers is going to be the story of the offseason, hopefully sooner rather than later, but I would not be surprised if it goes on until after the NFL draft. But will Mike McCarthy get a chance to coach Aaron Rodgers for at least one more year starting next season?
Oh, I'm sure that had nothing to do with him getting the job, right? I mean, they kind of went outside the realm here because he's in his 60s. So, I'm just wondering, like, how long is he going to try to coach? And does he know that they may have to start, kind of like they may have to rebuild? So unless they're going to do some
Mhm.
band-aids and such, maybe they think that if Rodgers comes back, maybe they can just, add some guys and, bring like a Green Bay style reunion out in Pittsburgh. I don't know. So this is an interesting hire. I will say that.
Yeah, Pittsburgh got a lot of money tied into TJ Watt. I know he's making a lot of money. He's starting to get to the other side of his career in terms of age. That defense is not as good as we thought, especially going throughout the year. Jalen Ramsey's old bud is still over there in that secondary. I know they don't have a lot of draft picks, and of course, Kenneth Gainwell and Jalen Warren, they did balance out each other at the end of the year in the running game. I know they had DK Metcalf. He got suspended for the last 2 games of the regular season, but outside of that, they really don't have much. So, and the Rooneys like the Steelers to be competitive every year. Now, they missed the playoffs a couple of times in the last decade. I think it was 2013, 2012. I think back-to-back years, I believe those are the last 2 times they missed the playoffs, but during my time of tenure. But it's time for the Steelers to rebuild. Now, I know bringing in Mike McCarthy is going to delay that a bit, but if they need to do some sort of rebuilding. Can they do it on the fly and at least put a competitive team out on the field? That's the $1 million question there, in my opinion.
Going to be very interesting there. Now, speaking of Mike McGee, I know you mentioned him earlier. He is now the new OC over with the Chargers. I like this move. I think he and Justin Herbert, they need to get some guys there and need to keep their O-line healthy. I think that's going to be the key for the Chargers there, because that came back to bite them in the blood in the playoffs, especially.
Yeah, we know Jim Harbaugh to be a round and pound guy, pound the rock with with that offense. Like you said, the offensive line, the injuries to the Chargers this year really decimated them. It really didn't come to fruition in terms of what they wanted to do. Justin Herbert, he had that bad left hand, his non-throwing hand. Hopefully he'll be healthy to go next year, and they can get another stud wide receiver in there. I know they got Quentin Johnson, who's good. Lad McConkey, he's a stud as well. But if they can get a wide receiver, just like we saw here in Chicago with Luther Burden III, the rookie out of Mizzou, if they can get another wide receiver that can stretch the field, Mike McDaniel can be creative. You saw what we saw in Miami, especially a couple of years ago when Tua Tagovailoa and of the wide receiver Tyreek Hill were both healthy. They were averaging 40 points a week. You can definitely see something similar to that with the Chargers next year. So the sky's the limit for the Chargers. Can't wait to, assuming that everybody's healthy, I can't wait to see how that offense looks under new OC Mike McDaniel.
Should be very interesting there. I know that Declan Doyle has pulled out of the Eagles. OC pulled his name out of there. I think the rumor from Diana Rossini from the Athletic is that they offered him the job. He declined. Also, Grant Udinsky, the OC for the Jaguars, actually was offered the he wasn't offered, but he was one of the finalists for the Browns head coaching job. He said, "No, I'm pulling my name out." Apparently, they're doing essays and personality tests. Like, okay, are they going for to be NFL coach? Or
we're not in college, ladies and gentlemen. This is an NFL job. We're not in college taking a final exam. God,
it's no wonder nobody wants the job because of that reason. Now, let's say Anthony Weaver is one of the favorites for the Arizona job too. He has a second interview, in-person interview with them. And we'll see. I know Shefty and I think Ian Rappaport both said that I think there's 4 coaching jobs still open. All of them might be filled or might be close to being filled by the end of the week, especially with the Sunday off before the Super Bowl.
And one name is not mentioned, one of the finalists, unless I missed something, and he hasn't dropped his lawsuits from what I know. Brian Flores of the Minnesota Vikings. I know he signed that contract extension to stay with Minnesota as their DC, but his name has not been mentioned. The finalist names for those remaining 4 jobs. Just saying.
He's like I said, we're going to be an announcement that he's going to be going back to Minnesota, staying in Minnesota probably within the next couple of days, I think.
All right, hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 is straight ahead following these messages. As you listen to the Monday edition of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, Derrick Rose gets the treatment of a Chicago sports king, and the Bulls helped him up by beating the Celtics. Yay! In college basketball, the Fighting Illini get a rare world win at Purdue thanks to Keaton Wagler's 46 points, and we'll have a whole lot more, and we'll put our capper on our 85 Chicago Bears edition of Old School TV Monday, saluting Super Bowl 20. Then the whole lot more. You stick and stay right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. On Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel, you can find us at Sports Zone Chicago. And on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a romance sport. What? It's a romance sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Everybody in a work zone is someone's somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Monday Extravaganza edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, the kid, is me. LaKeena, McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keaton McGee on the Twitter, X, and IG.
We're talking about Derrick Rose retirement ceremony, the Chicago Bulls, and the rest of the NBA for this half hour. And we'll probably sneak in some college basketball talk in there as well. Not this segment, definitely kicking off next segment as well. So if you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects and more, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
We'll do the game first, since they actually did the game first before D Rose's jersey retirement ceremony. The Bulls actually did. It was back and forth between them and the Celtics for a little bit, but thanks to Kevin Huerter's go-ahead three-pointer, that sealed the win for the Bulls. They have now won 5 in a row. Kobe White had 22. All 5 stars were in double figures for the Bulls. 16 points for Vooch. And that three-pointer had capped out 12 points off the bench for Huerter on the losing side for the Celtics. 33 points for Jaylen Brown, 21 off the bench for Anthony Simons. So yeah, and my mom was actually, I was talking to my mom about this, about the D Rose ceremony. She said that, well, they're glad, I'm glad they won, because that would have been weird if they had lost and they'd done the D Rose ceremony. It would have been a little bit awkward. So yeah, I'm glad that Herder did this thing and got the game winner it ended up being the game winner for the Bulls. And they were able to do the ceremony. So we'll do like I said, we'll do the game first, and we'll do the talk about D Rose ceremony. So Sid, what do you think about the game on Saturday, I should say?
Because of the hype surrounding the D Rose jersey retirement ceremony, the Bulls gave it their best now on the current, I believe, 4-game winning streak. They have the Lakers tonight. We'll get into that preview of that game in just a moment. But regarding Saturday's win, I was very proud of the guys. As you mentioned, all five stars in double figures. Patrick Williams, LaKeena, I know he didn't do well, only 1 rebound as far as defense was concerned, but he scored you 10 points. I was happy about that. So I know I got a big Dave Watson from CHGO. He was there at the game as well. I'm sure he was falling out of his chair, in terms of his shooting, but it was nice for him to get the game winner from the left corner. He was wide open. Kobe White, as you mentioned, he was very aggressive, but during his 4-game winning streak, LaKeena, the Bulls have shot the ball very well, not just overall, but from 3-point range as well. Once again, Saturday proves our point. 51% shooting overall, 47% from 3, and they out-rebounded the Celtics by 6 at a +6 range at 44-38.
Yeah, that was because usually Boston actually a pretty good rebounding team. So the fact the Bulls were able to edge him out on the rebounding front, that was, especially the defensive rebound, that really was the key here for the Bulls in this 4-game. We actually been rebounding the ball pretty well during this 4-game streak. They will go for 5 in a row against the Lakers tonight. And they got a big win over the weekend too. We'll talk about that in a bit here. But going to the D Rose ceremony, saw a lot of, there's definitely a who's who out there. Of course, like 25 of his former teammates, talking about D Rose's former teammates, made the trip from, of course, Luol Deng, Kurt Heinrich, Kyle Korver, Taj Gibson, Brad Miller, he could be in a rock band. I posted on the X. I'm like, wait a minute, is he in a rock band now? Because he got the beard and the long hair. We're talking about Brad Miller.
I didn't know who the hell he was. I saw him do a pregame. Yeah, I saw him do a pregame on CHSN, and I said, "Who the hell is he?" Thank goodness I saw a picture online, and I saw him again. I was like, yeah, that's him. Wow, he's really he definitely cannot be recognized if you walking down Michigan Avenue right now.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, just some of the many others, of course. Coach Tibbs, Thibodeau was there, showing a lot of emotion, which we never saw that. When he was coaching here. And it was great to see D Rose. Of course, he's been has become a fixture in Chicago the last few years since he's retired. He shared stories about growing up within a single parent household, his brothers protecting him, making sure that he got to practice on time and such. You saw a couple of his high school teammates were there too, that he won 2 state championships with at Simeon. And I know I saw Coach Cal, of course. He was at Memphis, so I know he had a video tribute as well for him. And just it was the emotions. People were folks. There was not a dry eye among everybody who were there. I know his youngest son was crying his eyes out. And that poor guy, he's gonna be 2 years older, but all of his family were there, and it was really great to see, and just a really great great to see. Not only that they won, but prior to that ceremony, but the fact that it was just a really great ceremony. And I couldn't watch, of course, live. I don't have CHSN, but shout out to the Chicago Bulls social media people. Folks were having a great job live streaming it and putting the clips out on social media to make sure that the folks who could watch, like me, could actually watch it.
Yeah, I'm assuming you watched it yesterday morning because, like I said, the Bulls YouTube channel has the whole ceremony up there right now on their official YouTube channel. So for those of you that missed it or like to watch it again, I'll go check it out. But I watched that whole ceremony live. Shout out to a friend of the show, Cam Smith. We'll have him on the show down the road. Him and Kendall Gill, aka KG, did a great job in hosting that. But to the actual ceremony, Derrick Rose showed some emotion. As you mentioned, you're talking about his mom and the rest, his brothers and the rest of his family. Of course, his immediate family with his new wife. And there too, I know they had 3 children, but two of the 3 children with his new wife, and you mentioned they were there with the youngest son crying. But I don't know if you caught this part. I'm sure you did. Joakim Noah, of course, he
Mm.
called D Rose the People's Champ last year during
Mhm.
his celebration day. He got emotional. He was talking about LeBron James and the battles and there. Tom Thibodeau said some
Mhm.
kind words. I want to get to Lowell Dang. He said this. I'm
Mm.
trying to paraphrase it the best way I can. He said that everything that's in God's timing, that everything that was supposed to happen, including his injuries and whatnot, it was supposed to happen. We didn't win the championship, but our championship is up there, referring to D Rose
Mhm.
jersey being up there. So he's like, that's our championship. We didn't bring one home, but our championship's up there with your number going up to the Raptors. And of course, Taj Gibson, I thought he was self-reflective, not just of himself, talking about his personal struggles. I know he got to a couple of things here after his playing days, after his days here in Chicago, but he said,
Mhm.
he was trying to find himself, as a young man coming into the NBA. Remember, he only played, I believe, 1 year. I think
Mhm.
someone correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but he didn't stay. If my memory serves me, he didn't stay all 4 years at USC. I'm talking about Taj Gibson. So he said
No.
it was weird to see Derrick Rose yell at me, even though he had a year above me, but he was I was he's younger than me in terms of actual age, but he was talking about how he didn't have much of a brotherhood growing up, but once he joined the Bulls, they were a band of brothers and they really stuck up for each other. You can see that camaraderie even to this day. So I thought it was a beautiful touch words, not only from Taj Gibson, but from Joakim Noah, Coach Thibodeau, and great things. He had an Olympic team in the Olympics a couple years ago. I'm sure they'll be back in 2 years in Los Angeles with this team. But all around, great job with the ceremony. The Bulls pulled it off. I know they had a band playing the Alan Parsons theme song, which they did a
Yeah.
good job. But once D Rose took the mic, the crowd went nuts. And some great stories that D Rose told. And just a salute to not just to Derrick Rose and his family, but the entire Chicago Bulls organization.
Yeah, everyone said it was such a Chicago. That was the most Chicago ceremony, and they were right. I know that I heard about. Of course, our buddy Big David they said it best, and that wasn't just that was for Derek. That was for Pooh. Of course, that's Derek's nickname. That was his nickname growing up. Pooh. Like like Winnie the Pooh and then such. But yeah, that's really what this is about. But I don't know if that was the origin of his nickname. But yeah, that's how they called him Pooh. So yeah, that was it was a really it was very Chicago. Like I said, I'm glad the Bulls won, so it made the ceremony even sweeter. Because like I said, it would have been awkward had they lost, and you did a ceremony afterwards. So I'm glad that the Bulls won. They were able to have the ceremony. It went on for a good couple of hours, almost a couple of hours or so. So and it was actually pretty cold. So I'm glad that the crowd was there to help celebrate. But yeah, it was a really beautiful ceremony. So yes, it is on it is still on the Bulls social YouTube feed. So if you guys get a chance to watch it or you only watch the clips, go ahead and it's right there for you. You won't have a dry eye. I'll say that.
Yeah, and shout out to Scottie Pippen who narrated the intro as some of the clips you saw on social media from the past last week. It was played before the ceremony for the folks at the United Center. For those of us watching at home as well, of course, Michael Jordan did a special tribute to Derrick Rose as well via video, so he couldn't make it. So great job by both those guys as well. All right, LaKeena, let's get back to basketball. What you're expecting from the Bulls tonight? As they host the 27-17 Los Angeles Lakers. Of course, LeBron James is in town. We all know that from his days with the Cavaliers and when he was with the Miami Heat for sure with those battles. Speaking with D Rose and that squad back 15 years ago or so. Now with the Los Angeles Lakers, he likes to put on a show at the United Center. Do you think this will be his last trip at the United Center? Me personally, no. But he's bringing his good friend Luka Doncic to town. And the Bulls, now all the hype from Derrick Rose is now gone. They're on a current 4-game winning streak. We know what happened last year. Josh Giddey, who's been playing very well, by the way, ever since he returned from his hamstring injury. You remember he hit the game winner last March, the last time the Lakers were here in Chicago. What do you expect tonight? I don't think we're going to – I think it's safe to say we're not going to see another half-court shot as a game winner.
No, definitely not. And of course, the Lakers are probably feeling a little upbeat after coming back to scoring 28, outscoring the Mavs 28-9 in their win against their comeback win against the Mavs on Saturday night. And I'm thinking that they're going to be, because they really needed that win, and I think they're going to want to keep that going. And I'm sure they know the Bulls are hot. LeBron loves playing at the UC, so I'm sure he's going to want to play on another show. I think this is going to be their last trip to the UC this year, so I'm sure they're going to want to avenge that that loss, if you will, to the Bulls. So I'm sure it should be a good one there. I would say take the over. I see that there are Vegas hasn't picked up. I think the Lakers are favored by only 1.5, so I would take them as a pick 'em. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, it should be a good one tonight down there over at the UC.
And you can catch that game on NBA League Pass at 7 p.m. for those of you outside the Chicago area. Of course, in Chicago, you watch it on CHSN. For those of you in Los Angeles, if you happen to be listening in Southern California, Spectrum Sportsnet, like I said, everybody else is NBA League Pass. All right, LaKeena, we'll break down just a couple of games from this past weekend. I know a couple of games were postponed due to weather, and others due to circumstances in the real world. But the Mavericks and the Bucks were postponed. It'll be moved to a later date. But just a couple of scores of importance to pass on from last night's contest. The New Orleans Pelicans get a upset San Antonio Spurs 104-95. The Suns were upset by the Miami Heat, losing by 9, 111-102. The Pistons continue to dominate the Eastern Conference. They beat the Sacramento Kings 139-116. The Warriors and the Timberwolves, like I said, due to special circumstances in the state of Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis, that game was supposed to be played on Saturday, but it was moved to Sunday. The Warriors beat the Timberwolves 111-85. I believe they still play again tonight. I know Steve Curry, Steph Curry, and the other members of the Timberwolves made comments about what happened, which made the game move from Saturday to yesterday. And of course, the Raptors, they continue to roll on. They upset the Oklahoma City Thunder on the road, 103-101.
Yeah, Manuel Cooley had 23 points, including I think there are a couple of those free throws that kind of sealed the win for the Raptors. And look, I said the Raptors are probably one of the more surprising teams in the NBA this year. They're 29-19 as we're recording this, and look, especially with the winning, being the defending champs, I think that's always a good boost, for the confidence. So I think if you're Toronto, you gotta be feeling pretty good right now. Now Miami had a couple of back-to-back wins over the weekend. Of course, last night they beat the Suns. Bam had 22. Bam had a nice weekend. He had 26 in the Heat 147-116 win over Utah on Saturday. Miami's starting to kind of come up a little bit there. The Knicks got a much needed win against the Sixers, 31 points for Jalen Brunson. I think that's definitely needed a good confidence boost, there after, folks are starting to freak out about the Knicks because they went into a little bit of a bump right now. I think being one of your rivals, I think one of your divisional rivals, is always a good thing, especially for the confidence, especially.
Yeah. And like I said, the Philadelphia 76ers have been doing well. Of course, we forgot to talk about this game on our show last Friday, but the day before, last Thursday, the 76ers beat the Rockets in a nail biter at home. Of course, they ran out of gas against the Knicks last Saturday, but like you said, for the New York Knicks, it's nice to see them get back on track. The Cleveland Cavaliers, speaking of them getting back on track after struggling to start the year, especially with injuries and whatnot to Evan Mobley. They beat the Orlando Magic 119-105. The Orlando Magic has kind of been up and down this year due to their injury situation. And the Charlotte Hornets, I'm not sure they're going to make a deep run to get into the play-in tournament, but they beat the Hapless Wizards last Saturday night, 119-115.
Yeah, that was Brandon Miller had 21 points. Definitely one of the breakout stars this year in the NBA, Mr. Miller. So we'll see if Charlotte can keep it up and perhaps maybe sneak into probably a play-in because they've been close the last couple of years. So we'll see what happens there. Now Minnesota is interesting because they've lost 6 of their last 7, and not with the other stuff withstanding. I know that. Ed had 32 in that loss to Golden State last night. He needs help. I know Julius Randle had his struggles. I know Juventus had 22, but they're going to have to trade for an extra score or probably even like a forward general, to kind of help out Ant, because if Minnesota is serious about perhaps going back to the Western Conference Finals, they're going to need an extra scorer to help out Ant and Julius Randle. So we'll see if they can make a trade, perhaps maybe get a defensive stopper, or perhaps maybe get a third scorer, or that floor, protect that floor general, if you will, so to kind of help out Ant. So we're just going to see what Minnesota does, before the trade deadline in a few weeks.
Yeah, we talked about Minnesota's depth, especially last year during their playoff run to the Western Conference Finals. They did a great job this year. Their depth has been tested with the various injuries, including Anthony Edwards. So, like you said, if they can get a defensive stopper or another scorer from the wing, I think that would help Minnesota. We talked about the other teams in the Western Conference trying to hang on to those top 4 or 5 spots with Houston. They got a big win against the Detroit last Friday on the road. We're talking about the Lakers, who will face Chicago at the UC tonight. We talk about Denver. Jokic is still out to perhaps the All-Star break. And so if Minnesota can make a move to get another score to help out Edwards, I think it'll put them over the top. Let's not forget about Oklahoma City as well. So Minnesota, we'll see what they do between now, I believe, next week's trade deadline. So you got less than 2 weeks.
So we'll see what happens. Their schedule for this week in the NBA are as follows. Now, some of these games could get moved around. I know that in Atlanta, the Pacers and the Hawks are playing right now. I think the Pacers are up right now against the Hawks, because of the weather that's been going on down there. Also, Philadelphia and Charlotte, that game was moved up because of the weather. So they're going to be playing in about a half hour from now. Tip-off starts in about a half hour. Then you have these are the games that are going to be on. Three of these games are going to be on Peacock. You got Orlando and Cleveland. That should be a fun one at 6 o'clock on Peacock. Portland, they continue their East Coast trip. They face Boston. We'll see what kind of mood they're in after losing to the Bulls. And of course, speaking of the Bulls, of course, they host the Lakers. LeBron, Luka, and the Lakers coming up tonight at 7 at the UC. Memphis and Houston. That should be a good one. And we're not repeating ourselves. Golden State and Minnesota play each other again. We'll see if Minnesota can get their revenge at 8:30 on Peacock. Just with all this what's going on outside of Minnesota.
All right, your schedule for tomorrow, Tuesday, are as follows. The Portland Trailblazers will continue the East Coast road trip. They'll play the Washington Wizards in our nation's capital. Sacramento will continue their road trip. They'll face the New York Knicks at MSG. The Bucks and 76ers, everybody will get this game around the country on NBC and Peacock at 7 o'clock Chicago time. The Bucks, they still struggling, and Giannis, oh boy. Well, remind me to talk about the article that I referenced to you about off the air on the other side after we do college basketball. It's something about his team, and we'll get to that following this timeout. Bucks and 76ers tomorrow at 7 o'clock on NBC, coast to coast, as everybody would get that game. New Orleans will face the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Pistons and the Nuggets will do battle from the Mile High City. Brooklyn will continue that West Coast road trip. They'll face the Phoenix Suns. And for those of you on the West Coast, you'll watch this game, the Clippers and the Utah Jazz. That's at 9 p.m. Chicago time, 7 o'clock West Coast time on NBC. The Clippers are surging. They're currently 3 games under 500 at 21-24.
Take the over with the points on that game. And remember, going back to the Nets Suns game, Devin Booker will be out for about a week. He sprained his ankle in that game against the Heat over the weekend. So that might be something to look out for for Phoenix. Now, Wednesday, the first game on the ESPN Wednesday doubleheader. You got the Lakers and the Cavs. That should be a fun one at 6 o'clock. LeBron returns to Cleveland once again. The Bulls, they go on the road about 90 miles southeast, I should say. They go to Indiana. That should be a fun one. There, Atlanta and Boston, Orlando and Miami, the Knicks and the Raptors. That could be a sneaky good one there. Charlotte and Memphis, Minnesota and Dallas, Golden State and Utah. Take the over with the points on that one. And a good one here in the Battle of Texas, you got San Antonio and Houston. That's the second of the ESPN Wednesday doubleheader.
All right, your schedule for Thursday are as follows. Sacramento will continue the East Coast road trip. They'll face Philadelphia. The first game of this Thursday night Amazon Prime doubleheader. Oh, boy, I'm sure they're ducking their heads underneath the tables on this one. The Milwaukee Bucks face the Washington Wizards. You can't make this shit up, folks. Other games for Thursday are as follows. Houston will face Atlanta in the makeup game on Thursday at the UC. For you Bulls fans that are attending this game, the Miami Heat will travel to Chicago to face the Bulls. That's the makeup game from January 8th. Remember the condensation? It was a little bit warmer out. Then hopefully won't be any more problems. So that game will be made up on Thursday at the UC. Charlotte will visit Dallas. Brooklyn will face Denver. The Detroit Pistons will face the Phoenix Suns as the Pistons continue their West Coast road trip. In the second game of the Amazon Prime doubleheader for Thursday, the Oklahoma City Thunder will face the Minnesota Timberwolves. Of course, the rematch of last year's Western Conference Finals. And that's your schedule for this week in the NBA.
A career night for Illini star freshman Keaton Wagler against Purdue on Saturday. Also, rest of the college hoops. And we'll talk about Giannis and the whole thing, a whole soap opera out there in Milwaukee. Old School TV Monday as we salute, conclude our salute to the 85 Bears. Blackhawks, not a good weekend down in Florida, and so much more. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, our Sports Potpourri segment coming up right after this.
Poof.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Oops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on a Monday extravaganza this year, Latte Loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she, Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG and SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
This is our sports potpourri segment, so anything goes to an extent for this last half hour of the show for today. So, if you have any questions or comments regarding the topics that we're about to get into right now, or any other topics that we had discussed thus far on today's show, you definitely got to hit us up right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up of the screen for you.
Off to college hoops, of course, we'll start with Illinois and Purdue. Keaton Wagler had 46 points. He was 9 for 11 from three-point range, including that as he led the way for the Illini as they beat Purdue 88-82 in a very rare loss, home loss for Purdue. I think this is like their third home loss, like the last 2 or 3 seasons or something like that. He broke all kinds of records. I think this is the most points an opposition player has scored at McGee Arena. The most points scored by a freshman in a Big Ten game, and such. So that's the most points scored in I think 30 years by an Illini player. So star freshman, he'll probably leave for the NBA after this season. But yeah, they're definitely gonna need big from him. If that's like I said, that's the rumor. But of course he was a I'm just he was a vaunted coming out of Kansas. I don't know how Bill Self let this guy get away, but that's different conversation. But yeah, I mean, but I mean, this was a big performance. They're gonna need if Illinois wants to go far in the NCAA tournament, they're gonna need a big contribution from him and others if they wanna. This kind of performance will go a long way, especially during tournament time.
Yeah, the line only got 10 points from their bench on Saturday, as we kind of talked about it a little bit. I don't know if I mentioned it on air last Friday, but with the injury to their point guard Colin Boswell, he's going to be out till hopefully the end of February with that broken hip. Other guys going to have to step up, and Keaton Wagler took on the challenge. I think I said this on our last show that he's been coming on these last few games, taking up the bulk of the scoring, saying, "Hey, I'm the man. I want to be the guy that takes the big shots with the game zone line when the pressure's on." He's been doing that, and last Saturday was no joke. I watched the entire game, and LaKeena, some of the other guys, as you mentioned, they had to step out. No, Patience Stojakovic's son, Andrei Stojakovic, had a big jump shot in the right corner with under 2 minutes left to go to extend that lead for the final line night. A couple other guys had big baskets as well, but Illinois, as we said all year long, they're going to have to protect the paint. They kind of did that in that second half. Let me tell you something, folks. For those of you, I'll just go back to Purdue for a second. For those of you that haven't seen their point guard, Brayton Smith, I'm talking about before for the Boilermakers. I know he's an all-time leader in assists. He can really control that basketball. He doesn't turn it over as much. I know he missed a big free throw toward the end of that game on Saturday, but besides that, him and Kaufman Finn really are the go-getters for that Purdue Boilermakers team. But back to the line, Keaton Wagler, you could tell he was fatigued at the end there, but he put the line on his back and gave his team a chance to win. And shout out to Illini overall. We talked about their defense in the paint. Their rebounding was excellent throughout the game. They had a plus 14 rebounding advantage over Purdue, 30.
Yeah, Ren and Smith are one of the last holdovers from that Final Four team where they won with Zach Edey a couple years ago. So, well, we'll see. I mean, look, they don't play each other again until unless they face each other in the Big Ten tournament. So this is their only matchup between these two teams, for at least for right now. So we'll see how Illinois, they do play on Thursday, so they get to kind of sit on that loss that win for a little, celebrate for it a little bit. They don't play Washington, at home until Thursday, so they get a couple of days to kind of celebrate a little bit. Then still before they got to concentrate on the Huskies. To continue the rest of the games from this from Saturday, these are Saturday's games. Shout out to our Real Deals who had to call this game on CBS down in Tucson. Arizona just hammered West Virginia 88-53. Braden Burries had 22 points. I think it's safe to say that Arizona is definitely the team to beat, at least right now in college hoops. I mean, they're the top 5 in scoring, but they also can lock you down on defense. And they got a nice squad there. We talked about Kawhi Piet all season long, but they got a good nucleus of guys around him. So Arizona is looking like the team to beat, at least right now in college hoops.
Yeah, another team is knocking on their door is the number 7 ranked team in the country, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Shout out to Fred Hoiberg, one-time former Bull coach and player, one-time player, former NBA player. His Cornhuskers get it done very easily on the road against Minnesota in Big Ten play, 76-57. Of course, we talked about that game against the Illini almost a month ago now, where they had to win at the buzzer. The Illini played them tough, but Nebraska just made one more big play. So we'll see what happens with Nebraska. They're knocking on the door too. I watched a little bit of that Duke game on last Saturday on WGN here in Chicago. They had the story Wake Forest by 21. Cam Boozer, he's definitely going to be a top 2 pick in this upcoming NBA draft. Should he leave after this year, which I think he will. Michigan State only saw 2 minutes of this game. You know why? Because they destroyed Maryland like the Illini did last week. 91-48. Tom Izzo has his team in high gear right now in North Carolina. Shout out Petey Pablo. They get by Virginia on the road 85-80.
Yeah, I think they were down a little bit against Virginia. They came back. Caleb Wilson had 20 points there. A big second half for him as they beat Virginia. UConn, they're starting to get it going. They needed overtime, but they did beat Villanova 75-67. Texas Tech, I saw this game. Texas Tech, it was back and forth, but Texas Tech did just enough to beat Houston. 31 points for Obi's brother, JT Toplin. He had 31 points. Also, shout out to Casey Flemings, who is another freshman. He had 42 points. A losing effort there for Houston. But Texas Tech, look, they beat Duke, but they were shorthanded. Now everyone's healthy. Tech could be one of those teams that could be a sleeper pick for the national championship, but we'll see what happens there. AJ DeBontis had 43 as BYU had no trouble with Utah, their state rival Utah. Vanderbilt got back on track, easily beating Mississippi State. Auburn, they needed this win desperately. They beat Florida in Florida, another rare loss for Florida at home. Keyshawn Hall had 24 points there. Tennessee with a nice win down in Tuscaloosa. They beat Alabama. Clemson sticking up in the ranks here a little bit. They beat Georgia Tech. Kansas State, they're getting better as well. Kansas getting better as well. They beat K-State pretty easily. Arkansas beat LSU, much to his chagrin. Texas, they got a nice win against Georgia. Louisville beat Va Tech. Illinois State lost to Belmont in Missouri Valley Conference play. Texas A&M beat South Carolina. With all the weirdness going on in the SEC, they're actually now the number 1 team in the SEC right now, A&M. So this shows you how weird that
Go
conference
figure.
has been. Yeah, very wide open. The SEC is this year here. And Northwestern, of course, they lost to UCLA late Saturday, so they didn't get the sweep. Oh, DePaul got a nice upset win, being Sheen Holloway's Seton Hall Pirates. CJ Gunn had 19 points there. DePaul actually is now ahead with their conference. They got 3 more wins. They're 4-5, so they got three more wins than they got last year in conference play. So I guess Chris Holtman's got it going over there in DePaul. We'll see.
Yes, steady improvement by the Blue Demons. We'll see what happens as the rest of the season goes along. USC, speaking of back to Big Ten play, they beat Wisconsin 73-71. How seriously do you take the Trojans, LaKeena? We talk about the Illini, we talk about Michigan, we talk about Michigan State. How seriously do you take the Trojans right now?
Yeah, they've been they kind of been back and forth. I know they lost Northwestern and such, and I know that they lost a couple of guys for the year, so they could be a Sweet 16 team had they were fully healthy. But this is a nice win for SC, especially the Kohl Center in Wisconsin. That's not an easy place to play or win for any road team, so that should be a good confidence boost for them. So we'll see what USC does. Hopefully this will be kind of lead to a nice little run for them. Back to Saturday, UIC with a nice win against Bradley, 85-70. New Mexico beat Nevada. Cal beat Stanford in the Battle of the Bay Area in the ACC. I know it's weird, and also Arizona State. Shout out to Bobby Hurley. They got a much needed win against Cincy, so maybe they can sort of get it going down there in Tempe.
Did you mention Red Patino picking up win number 900? If I did, I'm sorry.
No. Actually, we didn't. So I actually was going to talk about that. St. John's with a nice, St. John's with a nice win against Richard Patino, Coach Patino's son, Xavier. That was actually a pretty entertaining game. But yeah, shout out to Coach Pitino, number 900. I know he hates to do that at the expense of his son's team, but even still, I mean that's a pretty big achievement. He he's only the 7th coach to have 900 wins in college hoops history in the coaching side.
Yeah, all the stuff he went through last decade, how he ended at Louisville, he had to take a smaller job and then get back to St. John's and turn their program around. Much love to salute to Mr. Pitino.
Absolutely, and that would have been a really good game too. Xavier and St. John's ended up being a really good game there. There was one more score I wanted to talk about before I lost it. TCU beat Baylor, so a nice win for Jamie Dixon and his crew of Horned Frogs. So I think your Memphis Tigers, I think they won. I lost the well, unfortunately, Wichita State beat Memphis on Saturday. So tough times for Penny Hardaway and his Memphis crew. But Oregon with a nice win against Washington. Beat Oregon, I should say, on Sunday as well, and also USF beat Florida Atlantic in the American. So for number 1 in the American Conference right now. Now going to this week's games tonight, you got a couple of good ones here on ESPN's Big Monday. You got Louisville hoping to get their revenge from Duke. They lost to Duke about a month ago. They'll try to get their revenge at Cameron Indoor at 6 o'clock. Should be a good one there on ESPN. Also, the second game of ESPN Monday doubleheader, another good one. Arizona undefeated. They go to Provo to face AJ Devonsa and BYU. Him and Cole Pietz. I think that should be a good one down there in Provo. That place is gonna be rocking
a lot
over
of
there.
scores to be expected in that one.
Yeah, it's gonna be. It's basically gonna be rocking it over there, Provo. That place is always rocking, but they're gonna be in it. Tonight. Yeah, as they face Arizona, number 1 team, hoping to knock about the race of the unbeaten.
All right. Key games for tomorrow in college basketball in the top 25 are as follows. Number 7, Michigan State will visit Rutgers. That's at 5:30 on FS1. Number 5, Nebraska will face number 3, Michigan on the road. That's at 6 o'clock tomorrow on Peacock. That should be a hell of a game. Number 15, Arkansas and Calipari. They'll visit Oklahoma. That's at 6 o'clock on ESPN. Number 2, UConn will face Providence. That's at 6:30 on TNT and True TV. On the SEC network tomorrow at 7 o'clock, Missouri will face number 23, Alabama. At 8 o'clock on Peacock, number 12, Purdue, as they'll try to get back on track after losing to Illinois. On Saturday, they'll face Indiana, the in-state rivalry there. At 8 o'clock tomorrow on ESPN, Vanderbilt, number 18, they'll host Kentucky. They're 14-6. And number 24, the Miami of Ohio. Yes, the Ron Harper School, Ben Roethlisberger. I think Raleigh Zerbiak, too. They'll host UMass. That's at 8 o'clock p.m. tomorrow on ESPNU. LaKeena, the Miami of Ohio. They're undefeated, ranked number 24. Do you think they have a chance to perhaps not be ranked in the top 10? Because call me crazy. I would love to see it happen. I don't think it's going to happen. But do you seriously think they have a chance to run the table and make some noise in the NCAA tournament? Because we've seen in small schools in the last few years it started to make some noise. Miami for Ohio, so people are not taking them seriously. But what say you about about their chances?
Yeah, they had to come back and beat Kent State. So that's on Saturday. So it wasn't easy for them by any stretch. But I think this is going to be one of those teams. Look, you'll get a chance to see Miami of Ohio for the first time. So, like you said, for the Ron Harper, they got all the way to the Elite Eight, and Wally Zerbiak, his team, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they got all the way to the Sweet 16. So, this is going to be an interesting test here, but it should be a fun one. UMass, they haven't really been relevant since the Marcus Camby, John Calipari days. So we'll see what happens in this game against.
When we were teenagers.
Yeah, God, that's been that long ago. But it should be. We'll see what happens. I know folks are going to be seeing it for the first time, so make sure that you might be hearing their name a lot in March, coming in March in about 7 weeks. So we'll see what happens there. Now, Loyola has been a good season for them. They'll try to get back on track against St. Joe's. That's going to be on CBS Sports Network. Creighton and Marquette on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. Also, New Mexico and UNLV. That's going to be on CBS Sports Network. And Grand Canyon against Nevada. That's going to be on FS1. You'll to cap off your Tuesday. Let's see for Wednesday.
Yeah, Butler and St. John's at 6 p.m. on Peacock. Number 10, Houston visits TCO. That's at 8 o'clock on ESPN2. And rounding out the top 25 schedule, number 19, Florida will visit South Carolina to take on the Gamecocks. That's at 8 p.m. on SEC Network. And for Thursday, number 8, Iowa State will host Colorado. That's at 6 p.m. on FS1. Followed by number 9, Illinois. They'll host the Washington Huskies live from Champaign. That's at 8 o'clock p.m. on FS1. That's your top 25 schedule for Thursday.
And you're listening to Second C Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, City Brown with you. We'll do that hockey real quick. The Blackhawks, not a good showing over the weekend in Florida. They lose a couple of tough ones to both the Lightning and yesterday to the Panthers. Kind of Bedard's been struggling since coming back from his injuries. So I don't know. I mean, look, we talked about it. They got the Olympic break coming up in a few weeks. You gotta they gotta try to get something going here, so they will be when they do come back, they'll be in a good mood. So, what do you think about the Blackhawks at this point?
I did have a chance to watch some of that game last Friday against Tampa Bay. They look good in their new full black uniforms. By the way, they'll get a chance to wear them a couple of more times before the season's out for their Friday home games. But the lack of scoring outside of Bedard and my guy Tyler Bertuzzi is really coming back to bite him in the you-know-what. They're still a young team, a very hungry young team. They still trying to grow out of their phase, out of their young phase and whatnot. Before last night's game, the Chicago Blackhawks were 16-6-4 when tied after the first period. Of course, there was a scoreless tie last night between them and the Panthers. Of course, the Panthers exploded with those 3 goals in the third period there. But Spencer Knight, we talked about all year long, he is that man in net, having close to a 92% save percentage. The defense has been good, but like you said, the offense has been inconsistent over the last couple of weeks or so. They need to get that going and finish strong before the Olympic break. It's coming up soon, by the end of this week, beginning of next week. So hopefully, like you said, they get to finish strong, going to the break with some confidence, and then pick it back up in a few weeks once the Olympics are over.
Should be to see what happens there. Now, the Avalanche, they've been kicking butt. They beat the Maple Leafs yesterday 4-1. Brock Nelson had a hat trick, and they've earned about 79 points, and they have put up an 80-plus goal differential in 50 games. The last team to do that, you got to go all the way back to 83-84 with the Edmonton Oilers. They actually won the title that year. And also, happy birthday to Wayne Gretzky. He turns 65 today. And yeah, absolutely. So the Avs are playing very well right now. Like you said, I mean, it's a little early to say, they're the favorites to win the cup, but they're looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, they are the favorites, and everybody else can go and play. Speaking of Wayne Gretzky, real quick, I think I told this story on the show. He was part of the first hockey game I saw live. It was back in April of 1999. It was during we had our spring break in that. I think it was that first week in April in high school. I was a senior in high school, so I saved up all my chore money to go watch the Blackhawks. This was the first time I watched the Blackhawks game in person. Because remember, back in those days, their games were not televised on home TV. Back then, they were on Fox Sports Chicago. But remember that year too, LaKeena, Chris Chelios was traded to the Detroit Dead Wings, and of course, Detroit came to Chicago that Sunday. So I drove my mom's red Nissan Pulsar 85 up to the United Center box office. I asked the ticket guys, I said, do you have any tickets left for that Sunday game against Detroit? He said, no. I thought he was lying. So I said, whatever. Do you have any tickets remaining for that Thursday game against the Rangers? Because remember at that time, Wayne Gretzky announced his retirement. So I said, he's coming to Chicago. Let's see if I can get tickets for that game. He said, yes, I got some tickets. Paid my $40. Cash, of course. Got into the arena. Watched a hell of a hockey game. Of course, the Blackhawks won. JP Dumont, yes, for you old school Blackhawk fans, you know what he did. And that was, of course, after the Chelios and Roenick were booted out of here. And Tony Amonte carried that franchise. But JP Dumont scored a hat trick that night. Wayne Gretzky got a same ovation in the middle of that third period. And it was just absolute honor to watch greatness right in front of you, of course. And watching Jordan all those years and some of the other great athletes we had in this town, him, Frank Thomas growing up. But just to watch somebody else right in front of you, it was awesome to see. So Wayne Gretzky was probably the first hockey game I saw in person. We was with the New York Rangers. It was only televised in New York. Like, never televised here in Chicago, which really pissed me the hell off even to this day. But glad I got a chance to experience it live.
Yeah, that was really cool. I saw the highlights, and that was the point that you're going to the point contention we went with JP, but like I said, we'll get to that's a whole different we're not gonna go into tangent because we don't have time to go into tangent about him, but yeah, I got my issues with him, but we'll talk about that another time when we have more time to talk about that, but yeah, I mean, look, one of the all-time greats, he's actually a really good analyst too. He does stuff occasionally for TNT and their hockey coverage, so. Yeah, I mean, it's good to see that he's still involved with the game and even mentoring, guys, in the game. So it's good that he's still very active. So that's good to see.
Yep. And I think that's what athletes should do. They were going to get involved in the game. All right, LaKeena, anything else? I had something else. We may have to say this until Friday. Anything else before I get to this article real quick? Anything else that was on your mind? I know we have a little time left, but anything else was on your mind?
No, not really. I mean, we got the Aussie Open, of course. Ben Shelton, he advances to the round of 16. I know your girl Madison Keys on the women's side. Unfortunately, she lost a fellow American, Jessica Pegula, late last night. So sorry about that. So we're gonna have a new women's champion. And I know Alcaraz plays later on tonight or early this morning. Depending on how you look at it. I know he plays Australian Demar. They're in the quarterfinals right now, and we could be on a collision course for another meeting between Alcaraz and Sinner. I know Sinner. I watched Sinner. He looked really good on Friday. But Djokovic, he actually won. Now he had to play. So he's a little bit of a rest before. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see what the rest of the Aussie Open unfolds because weather has been a problem. No, not the cold, but it's hot. It's hot down there in Australia right now. So that's been an issue for some of the folks. We'll see if who could survive the heat.
All right, you listen to Sports Zone Chicago, Second City Sports City. LaKeena here with you. Before we close it out with our salute to the 85 Bears for Old School TV Monday, I'll tease this article here a little bit, LaKeena, since we have a little bit of time. We'll probably have to pick this up, I'm sure, on Friday, but I meant to get to this last week, but did you check out this article from Zach Harper from The Athletic? It's the NBA blog called The Bounce, and he gave out his grades for each team in the NBA, both in the East and the West. We won't go through all of them, but I'll start with our team in the Chicago Bulls first. The Bulls, of course, now at over 500, 23-22. Guess what grade that Mr. Harper gave the Bulls?
What, a C?
Yes, a C+. That's right. And along with the grades that he gave each team, he gave one thing that each team must improve on. He said the Bulls need to defend the three-point shooter. I said, yeah, that's true, but they need better to defend that paint and rebound better. That's what we've been saying over the last 3 or 4 years. So I think that he was spot on as far as the Bulls are concerned. Let's see. It was another grade that he gave here I wanted to discuss with you. The Philadelphia 76ers, 24-19. B+ that he gave them. And shooting 2-pointers Zach Harper said that Philadelphia must improve on. I said, yeah, that's true, but Joel Embiid must play better. He must stay healthy over there. Had a minutes restriction lifted from him. Tyrese Maxey, I think he's number 3 right now as far as MVP considerations are concerned. And Paul George is back in the lineup. Let's not forget about Rookie of the Year candidate, Mr. VJ Edgecombe.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I can kind of understand that. He definitely has a case, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what as we get into the trade deadline and other teams. So this is what I'm looking forward to these next couple weeks. Last couple of weeks before the trade deadline, what moves will be made. So we'll see. But yeah, will the Bulls? I doubt Bulls is going anywhere now. Now that the Bulls seem to be on the come up a little bit, but
Let me bring that. Yeah, let me bring that with you real quick, LaKeena. And like I said, I know we'll continue this on Friday's show. With this Bulls' current 4-game winning streak, we'll see what happens tonight against the Lakers. But sorry for being the pessimist in me, but if the Bulls should be around this record by the time next week's trade deadline hits, I guarantee you, LaKeena, I could be wrong, but I guarantee that AK and Mark Eversley, I think it's safe to say that Vooch is out of here. But after that, I think they're going to stand pat. I'm afraid that's going to happen, but damn it, I think that's what's going to happen.
Mm.
And that's
All
not good
right.
if you're trying to improve.
Mm,
I hope
well,
I'm wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
well, look, like I said, we'll see about we'll see. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. It's just like I say, Sports on Sports Social Chicago, LaKeena McGee, sitting around with you, of course. Around this time, we do old school TV Monday. We're gonna put a capper on our salute to the '85 Bears. 40 years ago today, it's today, folks, that the Bears beat the Patriots easily in Super Bowl 20, which aired on NBC. See the connection of dots here. 46 to 10. I don't know. I kill me sometimes. I kill myself. I kill me sometimes with that little comment. But yeah, so probably one of the more dominant and lopsided Super Bowls, probably, around that time. That started a trend for NFC teams for winning Super Bowls. But this one was, we're talking about on this one today. But 46 to 10, the final there. It was dominant by the Bears, dominant for start to finish. Of course, the 46 defense, they made a couple, monster plays and such. Of course, the Will Refrigerator Perry scored a touchdown. Richard Dent had 1.5 sacks, forced 2 fumbles, and was, of course, named the MVP of that Super Bowl. Walter Payton, unfortunately, did not get a chance to, score a touchdown. I know Mike Ditka said that he regretted that. And such, but of course, the guys who called the game for NBC, Dick Enberg, Motor Olsen, and a young Bob Greasy, who he was starting to break into the TV analyst game at that time. Of course, Wynton Marsalis did the national anthem, of course, a little jazz style, and also "Up with People." Here's how long ago that was, folks. "Up with People."
Yes.
Was the halftime show for that Super Bowl down there in the Superdome in New Orleans. So. Sid, what are your thoughts on this Super Bowl win for the Bears?
I know people will compare this game to the 92 Dallas Cowboys. They beat the Buffalo Bills. I believe it was 55-27, if my memory serves
Something
correct.
like
that was
that,
the first time that they won. That was the first of their 3 Super Bowls in the 90s. And, of course, the 2000 Baltimore Ravens defeating the New York Giants. I believe it was 34-7. That was dominant as well. But as we talked about saluting the 85 Bears all year long, that was a dominant defense for 1 year. They shut out the Giants and the Los Angeles Rams out of the end zone. Remember, Walter Payton fumbled on the opening drive, and of course, it led to the early 3-0 lead for New England. Irving Fryer, who stayed in the lead for a long time, scored the only touchdown for the New England Patriots. But besides that, I believe Leslie Frazier got hurt in that game, and of course, the defense picked it up from there. And, of course, you mentioned Walter Payton did not score a touchdown. Mike Ditka, for a long time until recently, over the last decade or so, he didn't want to admit it in publicly for a long time until recently that he regretted not giving Payton a touchdown. Of course, if you saw the Football Life of Walter Payton episode on NFL Network, you can watch it right here on YouTube, by the way, that Payton was upset, and rightfully so. He was going to blast Ditka on the air, but he didn't do that. He took the high road and protected his image. But you mentioned by Up With People performance at halftime, LaKeena. Their performance during halftime of Super Bowl 20 was dedicated to the memory of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the first observance of the MLK holiday, which was held the previous Monday. So remember, it was the first year of the MLK holiday. So of course, we celebrated the 40 years of that holiday last week on our show.
Yes, we did.
Saluting Old School TV Monday with that movie with featuring Don Cheadle about the life of Petey Green. So talk to me. So so the Super Bowls are epic proportions, both on and off the field. And of course, the late great Bart Starr, Green Bay Hall of Famer. He did the coin toss before the game. Of course, all the Super Bowl MVP winners for the previous 19 Super Bowls were on hand as they were celebrated before the game with the pregame ceremony. So everything came together for not just for the National Football League, but for the Chicago Bears as well. As you mentioned, it was a dominating performance by the Bears defense. Cemented their legacy as one of the best defenses of all time, and they walked away with the world championship. And to this day, only 2 coaches, the Bears were the only team to carry 2 coaches off the field. Of course, Mike Ditka, and of course, the late great Buddy Ryan, who went to coach the Philadelphia Eagles following that game. Remember, he you know the story, he told the team without telling the team the night before that he was leaving to take the job with the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, the Bears would beat the Eagles their very next year in '86. So, to this day, only 2 coaches have been carried off the field thanks to the '85 Bears.
And a couple of notes from that. Of course, the Patriots. On the flip side, of course, they went on the kind of a Cinderella one too. They beat the Jets in the wild card game that year. They also upset the then LA Raiders, that year as well. And the defense had 6 turnovers, beating Miami pretty handily. Of course, you wonder had the Dolphins had beaten the Patriots. You wonder, could they have beaten the Bears again? Of course, that was their only loss in that their Super Bowl run to the Super Bowl. So you wonder, had they had beaten the Patriots, would they have won the Super Bowl? Would they have Bears gotten their revenge or something? Well, we'll never know, unfortunately. So that question always kind of lingers in my head in the last few years. I'm like, yeah, it's one of those things where you kind of wanted the what if. No, go ahead. Sorry.
I think the Bears would have been the Dolphins if the Dolphins would have reached the Super Bowl. Remember, like you said, the Dolphins beat the Bears on their Monday Night Football contest early in the year. That Bears defense would have been so focused, Dan Marino would not have known what to do with himself. But like you said, we'll never know, and we had to live with results. But just a couple of statistics for you from the Bears side. Jim McMahon, 12 of 20 for 256 yards. 2 rushing touchdowns. Walter Payton, despite that early fumble, 22 carries, 61 yards, and no touchdowns. Matt Sewell, his fullback, who scored a touchdown off of 11 carries and 52 yards. Willie Gault, 4 catches for 129 yards.
A great team performance there. The total dominant performance that year, and the show that came on after Super Bowl 20. The Last Precinct, which is it was the Sunday. It was kind of like a Sunday night type movie, and it starred Adam West from Batman. It was actually produced by Stephen J. Cannell, even easy for me to say. It actually came on later that spring. Only in it only had like 10 episodes, not even like 6 or 7 episodes because the ratings were very good. So it also starred Ernie Hudson too, one of his first big roles. So that was a little trivia for you folks of the show that came on after that Super Bowl. So we've seen some shows take off, but others like this one not so much. So I know it's useless information, but it's a nice little way if you're asking at a party.
And one more final note, LaKeena, the Bears tonight, the '85 Bears did not get a chance to go to the Super Bowl. Did not chance to go to the White House this year because of the Space Shuttle Challenger devastation accident, which caused the lives of all of those crew members. Of course, former President Barack Obama invited them to the White House in 2011. 25 years at that time later for them to get that proper recognition from the White House.
Yeah, I think that happened. I think like a couple of days that Tuesday, a couple of days after that. I think that's going to be commemorated as I think tomorrow. So there's unfortunate they couldn't reschedule it because there were other stuff going on. But I'm glad President Obama gave him a chance there. Now a couple of late notes here. Shedeur Sanders has been added to the Pro Bowl roster as a replacement because of course Drake May was supposed to be going. Well, now he's going to be a little bit busy. So, of course, Shedeur Sanders replaced. Also, Deshaun Wright, the corner for the Bears, injury. He's going to the Pro Bowl. And also, Jared Goff will go into the Pro Bowl as well because Sam Darnold was supposed to have been going. So, a couple of Pro Bowl games going on there that will be coming up this weekend.
All right. I know you. Well, we wanted to get to this last nugget going back to basketball. I know you want to get to. We'll have more on this on our show on Friday. But Giannis left Friday's game with a right calf injury. He re-injured it. He's going to be gone for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So if you're looking for him in next month's All-Star game, it's not going to happen. You look for him to get traded at the trade deadline, that's not happening again either. Looks like we're going to be talking about this once again this coming summer. So the Milwaukee Bucks have been having a tough year this year, record-wise anyway. So the saga with Giannis, whether he stays, whether he goes, continues. And as I said before, and I'll say it again, he has 1 foot in, 1 foot out. He has a contract extension that he can sign before the start of next season. Will he sign it? We're going to be talking about it all summer. So stay tuned.
Oh, boy. Just I
know.
As the Giannis turns, the Giannis world turns, I guess we're going to call it here, this little soap opera. On that note, you can follow my Keaton McGee on the Twitter at Secure Screen and IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sidney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And of course, if you miss a segment, whether it's our picks, we'll go consumer from KXRB, our interviews, and so much more, no worries. You can go back and watch it anytime, anywhere on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels.
And you know we will provide.
Thaw out, folks. Make sure you guys thaw out there, and of course, be careful out there. Stay safe, stay warm. And just be good to each other. This is Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you guys on Friday.
Holla!